Again, more people who are coming in. That's great. So I've got a couple people already, Karen, Snitra, Cyril, and Mel so far. Nice to have you all. If you care to, you're more than welcome to use the comments and type in the comments who you are or what you do. If you want to share your LinkedIn profile, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I always love people to make connections as much as hopefully get something out of the call as well.
Is that the in-call messages? I've never seen a call that way before. Is that what that is?
I don't know. Here, I'll put it right here.
All right. Yeah. Okay. And I'll put that up in a second.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. We got a bunch of people still kind of connecting in here. I'll get started in a couple moments. While we do that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so everybody can, and hopefully it doesn't kick me out again here, which is not so good. It looks like it's working this time. Fabulous. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Super. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a soft start. Cyril, how are you doing? Nice to see you, Cyril. That's all right. I timed that perfectly just as you took some food in your mouth there. You're on mute if you were saying something.
No, I was saying I just went to the only French bakery in Palm Spring. I'm in Palm Spring for the week, so I'm just enjoying the food from my country anyway. The flavor, at least anyway.
What was it any good? The Palm Springs French bakery?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's done by French and is with a French ingredients anyway, which is very unusual anyway. So just enjoying the moment.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, feel free to drop anybody if you'd like to go ahead and drop into the comments, the chat messages, who you are if you'd like for people to know who you are. You're more than welcome to do that. You're more than welcome to sit quiet if you'd like as well. All right, welcome everyone. Glad you're here. I've got some notes that I'm going to try to read from and just to kind of keep myself moving. Before I dive in, I want to start with an overall question as we go through today. And you don't need to answer it yet. I just wanted to kind of sort of sit in the back of your mind and sort of flavor how we're going to go through today. I will be calling people in, just asking them to share their opinion, their perspectives. We'll probably have folks that I'll call under an umbrella of executive guides, coaches, consultants. We'll also have CXOs from companies joining in. So I want this to be an open forum and discussion. Feel free to connect with each other as you see fit. But here's the question I want to use to kind of set the stage for what we're going to discuss today. What if your team is doing everything right? And that's the reason you can't actually see what's broken. And that's what we're going to unpack today and together. And by the end, I think there are a lot of things that are going to make a lot more sense that maybe didn't before because they were hidden behind the scenes. They're kind of systemic issues floating under the surface. So I'm going to start simple. And this is something I'd love for you to start with just so we can get the dialogue started. Drop in the chat where you're joining in from today and give me one word, whether it's for your organization or for an organization or organizations you might be working with. What's the word that would describe how execution is feeling in that context? I'd love for everyone to jump in. Cyril, I'm sure you've got some thoughts and comments on the topic. You work with execution in a lot of organizations. So yeah, share in the comments if you will. And let me see what people are saying here. And I am going to, I can't see where did my messages go?
Okay.
All right. Let's get rolling. So next slide. So here's what today is really about. Most of us are trained to look for problems where things are falling apart. where the team is struggling, where the numbers are already off. But what if the problem is actually hiding somewhere else completely and entirely? I mean, if you're looking in the wrong place, you're probably never going to find the right answer. So this is what I'd like you to think about, right? The team is busy. People are busy. They're always working. There's deliverables are moving. Things are getting pushed out the door. Everyone seems engaged. I don't really go into any organizations myself where people are just kind of sitting on their hands or twiddling their thumbs. And everyone's busy. They feel good. And what happens? You start asking hard questions because everyone's got their head down and they're working. And why would you look? Everything looks fine on the surface. But I think that's actually where the risk hides the most. And this is sort of the idea I'd like to plant in your mind. Think of one place in your business or the businesses that you work with, that client business, where the team is working hard, but the results keep missing. And just hold that picture for a moment, because we're going to come back to that. And I'd love to hear from anyone. So I hear Keith, thanks for joining in. Keith, Karen from New York City, thanks. Mel is in Columbus, Ohio. Cyril, I know you're in Palm Springs eating from a fantastic French bakery. So Sinitra, I would love to hear where you're from if you're so inclined to share. And I'd love to, throughout the course of this, after I do each slide, I'd love to hear some comments. Keith, did you just come off mute? I heard some background. Sinitra, was that you?
That was me coming off mute because I'm actually driving, so that's the reason why I can't chat. And but I'm from Shelby, North Carolina. I am an R&D cybersecurity and IT solution firm for the underserved and vulnerable people. And I did start a movement called the 313 Cyber Guardian Angel. And so I got a lot of stuff in the works right now, but that's me in a nutshell. I am originally from Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. That's where the 313 came from. And so I just wanted
thanks for saying
that. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But I'm driving, so that's
I appreciate you sharing. Throughout the courses, I'm going to ask some questions. I'd love people to share what they're experiencing. So this one was about the idea of where people are working hard, but they're still missing they're still missing the targets. So the question I'd like to maybe for all. So a question I'd like to ask of all, right? So how many of you, maybe even by a show of hands, or I'd love to hear from you, how many of you have been in a meeting where everyone agreed, everyone nodded, and everyone walked out of that meeting feeling good? They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna nail it. We're gonna knock it out of the park this quarter. Then 6 weeks later, the output looked nothing like what you decided. Karen, I see you nodding your head. Does that mean, yeah, you've seen that happen before?
I have. I mean, I have seen that happen for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you're in the minority. I think you might be in the majority, right? That happens everywhere. Because the thing is, it wasn't because the team didn't care. It wasn't because people are lazy, necessarily even unqualified or resistant. They were working. They were executing. They were just running slightly different versions of the strategy than what the team or what the alignment document had written down. They're not wrong. It was actually just different. And look, here's the thing. Nobody noticed because everyone was busy. It's not like anybody was sitting on their hands and just twiddling their thumbs. Those days don't exist. It's not a people problem. And I think that's often what gets blamed. It's not a strategy problem because people question the strategy. It is a translation problem. Yeah. And if you asked every leader on your team right now or in that client business right now to write down the number one priority, would you get the exact same answer from every one of them? Karen, you're nodding your head saying no.
Yeah.
Tell me what's behind the nod.
Well, I mean, I was even just working with a client, and they didn't have their strategy, goals, and objectives out for the year, and this was about 3 weeks ago. And the team I was working most closely with was like, well, we don't know what the company's like strategy is and how this aligns. And so if you don't know that, right, then you're going to get different answers if they haven't communicated those kind of things. And I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel, how about you? Any thoughts in the work that you do I think around sales, right?
Well, what I see, I was a business owner for 25 years. I owned a manufacturing company, and the thing that I saw over the years is that number one is a lack of alignment on what the strategy really is, and the top team especially is moving in different directions, and that never gets communicated to the organization. So the culture is not really a high performing culture. And then I see after that it boils down to just execution at the lowest levels. They could be working hard, but if they're not working well, effort is not the objective; it's results. So that could be an issue as well. So alignment and I think execution.
Well said. Sunitra, you got your hand up. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about this translation issue.
The last person that just, I agree with both the last person and what Karen said as well. Especially the culture. I think the culture needs to be changed. And the communication needs to be more highly implemented. And I think that will probably change the results, because without that, it can get stagnant. So that's all.
Yeah, agree. Very, very much so. I think that leads nicely into kind of where I want to go next, right? Because here's how we think about where that translation breaks down. We call it the C cycle. C stands for strategy, execution, and EBITDA, right? Now, EBITDA is a placeholder, right? In private equity, EBITDA is the number that they're always looking for. But in different industries, different stages of companies, different types of investments or investors in that company, it may not necessarily be EBITDA. It might be an effect or an outcome, right? But C cycle is what we call it, because ultimately that profitability is what most all companies are in business for, right? So that EBITDA is a proxy for it. So most leaders spend their time looking at the third one, the numbers, the outcomes, and those quarterly results. But the problem is by the time the numbers are off, the fracture is already probably 60, 90, 120 plus days old, right? The way I think of it is I'm a little bit of a car nut, so I'm always thinking in terms of cars. By the time that you see that your speedometer has gone from 100 to 0, you've already crashed into something. You don't want to wait that long to make a change in direction, hit the brakes or steer left or right, right? Because the break didn't happen at the bottom. I think, Mel, you were kind of touching on this a little bit, right? It didn't happen at the bottom. It happened at the bridge between what was decided and what actually got done, right? That translation from that senior leadership down is where that execution, that bridge between execution broke. Execution looked strong the whole time. Nobody went looking. And the reason why is because, hey, everybody's busy. The C cycle kind of shows you where to look before it broke down. So the question I want to ask, and I'd love to ask the group here, where does the work feel most out of control right now? The plan, the doing, or the numbers? Where do people most witness that? Maybe at your organization or an organization you work with? Cyril, doesn't look like, maybe you finished your pastry. What are you thinking?
I think it's a bit of everything. And when we say the execution, and what I really like what Mel was saying. You can work hard, but if you don't work well, then it doesn't matter, because the outcome won't be exactly what you need. So for me, it's like strategy, communication, like you said, and the way the people work. I'm in a company as we speak as a fractional CRO. I won't name these guys, obviously, for obvious reason, but it's a mess. There is no sales and marketing machine. Everything is referrals for $20 million company. I'm speechless when I'm talking to these guys. They really work hard. Process is not there. Execution is there, but not well, like Mel was saying. And then at the end of the day, it's numbers are not showing up. But it shouldn't be a surprise for anyone. I mean, come on, guys. It's obvious that you can be lucky sometimes, but you need process, you need everything, a bit of everything. And I was working with an ex Cisco guys, was one of the CXO in this company, and he say, I don't think they've got the right people either. So it's a mix of everything. That's what I meant anyway. So it's never the people alone, it's never the execution alone, it's not the strategy or the communication, it's of everything. At least that's my way. I mean, as we speak, a big chaos, but that's why we need people like us anyway. So I love it. Here we go.
Let me kind of dovetail in there, right? Because here's, I think, something that most leaders don't realize. Like Cyril, by the time they brought you into the conversation, they were probably seeing these numbers a number of quarters or time periods over and over. Where they started saying, we got a problem here, and they thought it was just execution. Yeah, but it actually started much earlier than the execution itself. Back to kind of what a number of you said, right? The signal is something that is wrong, shows up long before the results do. And here's kind of maybe 3 ways to think about how it shows up and how it's showing up in each one of those cases, right? Early signal, your team is using different words for the same priority. One person calls it growth, someone else calls it efficiency, someone else calls it stability. There's already divergence in language, right? Same strategy, 3 different translations of the exact same thing, but everybody's working.
Yeah.
Mid signal. So let's say early is the first week of the quarter. We just did our offsite. We put everything up on the wall. Here's what we've all agreed to. We've even signed a piece of paper. Right? That's 1 week in. 3, 4 weeks in, right? Different parts of the business start moving at different speeds. Sales is pushing forward. Operations hasn't caught up yet. Product is pointing slightly to the left. Everyone's busy. Everyone is executing. Nobody's got any extra time, but they're all executing to different endpoints. Late signal. Now we're getting closer towards the end of the quarter, and we're just using that as the time period here. The numbers are starting to soften. Everyone wants to know what happened. Fingers pointing starts, but the break was there so long before. Strong execution at mid-signal stage is the most dangerous place, in my opinion. It's because everything feels fine, but it isn't. It's all kind of lurking under the surface, right? It's all the activity that's happened under the surface of that really calm lake. The fish are swimming around, and all kinds of stuff. People are being eaten. All kinds of stuff is happening, but nobody sees it. So I'd love to ask a question, Karen, Mel. I would love to hear what you have heard. When did you first notice something was off in a business or a client's business, and how long ago was that reality? Was that really starting?
Well, as far as a client, I've just started out, and I just worked with my first client. So I came in and did a diagnostic, and just could see that there was a lot of things that needed maturity, and they weren't measuring anything, and just from A to Z, it needed a lot of work. They were just carved out from another company and bought by a private equity company, so it's possible that some of that wasn't as visible when they were part of the bigger company.
Yeah.
Nice.
I get that.
Yeah.
Mel, were you saying something? I think you're on mute.
Excuse me, I was muted. One of the first things that I do is I look at the culture in a company and specifically look at whether the top team is aligned. And I have a survey that I run that determines what their perspectives are individually about the company. Do we have a certain position in the market that's sustainable, so on and so forth. And what it really shows is some people rate these conditions very high, some rate it low. And that's an indication of some kind of dysfunction at the top. And when there is that kind of dysfunction, for example, operations may think that they have a very poor position with a certain market, and engineering may think they have a good one, or marketing thinks they have a good one. But there is this disagreement on what the position the company really is in. So it's very hard to execute well. I mean, you could work hard, but if you have that kind of disagreement, if the perceptions are that diverse, you're never going to get the results right. So you have to address that issue at the leadership level and get everybody on the same page.
Let's do that. Let me show you an example of what that looks like. Right. This is what a signal looks like, and I know the numbers are a little small and language. Right. I'll show you a bigger version a little bit. Mel, you're smiling. It sounds like you've seen something like this.
I'm familiar with it.
What's that? Okay, good. This is what it looks like when we measure it. We call this a friction map because it shows where the leader perceives friction in their organization, where they see their strengths.
Right.
This is one leader's map, interpretation of how the business is running across 15 areas. And what I want you to look at is this is their reality, right? See some areas that are strong as you start to look at things like market growth and strategy alignment, financial health, market strength. You can see there's some strength here. But then you can start to look at things like customer experience and business agility. Those dips aren't showing up in the quarterly decks. They're not in the team updates. They're living quietly underneath the surface of the execution layer. The way this person's going to execute is shaped by the way they see the world. Right? This leader doesn't know the shape, not because they're not paying attention, not because they're not incredibly intelligent. It's because nobody's ever shown it to them. Right? The set of lenses. So, I mean, this kind of exposes to them what their blind spots are and what their natural proclivities are. So, thinking about maybe yourself in your own business or a potential client's business, what's one area in that business that you know is weak, but nobody's talking about yet?
Right.
Right. Thoughts or questions? I'd love some comments. Karen, I feel like you're a thinker. What's going through your mind as you see this?
As far as one area that could be weak.
Sure. Or I mean, how do you think this person makes decisions based on what you see here as a map? How about this? I'll make it a little bit easier for you. Okay. This is what that leader looks at how that leader looks at things versus a team. When we put that leader next to the whole team, same company, same strategy, same room, same nodding. Everybody's in alignment. We went to that same offsite.
Yeah.
We wrote everything down. Two completely different shapes. Do you see?
The leader thinks that they have a plan, but it looks like the team doesn't feel that it's clear what's going on, right? Because he or she thinks they've got plans for market growth and strategy and etc. But the team isn't really, aligned with that. Yeah.
Cyril and Mel, I'm gonna come back to you all in a second here. I want to throw a couple of comments out first, right? Nobody's wrong here. Nobody's fighting. Nobody would even say that they're misaligned if you ask them in a meeting, right? They just have different pictures in their heads of what strategy means day to day and how they're actually going to execute. And it's not really it's really the delta between what they see and someone else sees. That's actually the problem, right? Or we see things like, for example, strategy alignment up here is a 9 out of 10. Pretty strong score. The rest of the team sees that as a 5.
Right.
Cyril, Mel, what's going through your head as you see this?
Well, what's going through my head is that the individual leaders are really emphasizing things that are not consistent across the whole leadership team. So they could be working hard on something that is not important to them, but is important to the rest of the team.
Yeah, that's right. Cyril?
Because I'm very customer oriented, I'm stuck there because customers are the ones who pay your salaries, your bonuses and stuff. And it looks like nobody's agreed on customer experience, the customer loyalty and stuff like this. So the leader thinks they don't have any loyal customers and the customer experience system are okay. And when the team is saying, oh, customer experience is a catastrophe, but they are very loyal to us. And it's like, well, if you don't know your customers, you're in trouble. I mean, as a big picture anyway. So for me, it's like really, I understand the strategy and stuff like this, but strategy, I mean, we've seen that so many times from the PE firm to the board to the C-level and then going down to the team. So it's a big communication issues. Karen was saying, sometimes when she's going to a client and they don't have any goals, we're in June, they don't have any goals for 2026, makes me laugh anyway. I mean, laugh, not in a good way, but makes me laugh. Yeah. It's like, guys, where are you going? You're going again, the wall. I mean, you are in the wall already anyway. So you've got this strategy layer, but then, I mean, the customer experience. I mean, come on, guys. You don't take care of your customers, your company is down. I mean, they don't exist. Simple. So that it was I was really focused on that, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. Sinitra, I haven't called on you just because you've been driving. You're more than welcome to chime in. Did you have anything that I mean, I don't know if you're able to see this, just because I think you might be dialed in as opposed to being able to see it visually. If you have a thought, you're more than welcome.
Actually, I can see it. I actually can't see it. It's on my phone. I can see the presentation, and I was just listening. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. So I do see the presentation very well, and that this from my phone. And at the same time, I am listening very carefully. Thank you.
Nope. Good. Yeah, absolutely. Please drive safe. I don't want to put you in any sort of danger. So the question I want to leave you with before you kind of leave this slide, and again, this is something that you could use in your own individual organization or somebody organization that you work with, right? If you pick one person on that leadership team, do they see the business the same way you do or differently? And here's the real kicker there. How sure are you? Because I think that's the piece that matters. How sure are you that they see it exactly the same way? I will tell you, and I'll use a personal example here. When I go tell my kids to go clean their room, I am sure as hell it's been very clear what I told them. Everyone's chuckling because that's not the result I get pretty often. So I'm just going to make this a little bit larger so we can kind of just see sort of the detail. Oops. The detail of what's happening on the screen here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know, I just a comment that what I've seen too is that when you have this kind of divergence on key issues, I don't know how, I mean, you can't develop a strategy that you're going to go out and then have your team execute, because how do you go through a strategy session and not resolve those differences? You know, how much effort should be put into customer relations and you know, that kind of thing. So you got to resolve these issues before you develop your strategy, or the flaws are going to be built into everybody's working hard on strategies that are just not sound.
That's a really, really insightful. I can see it's an experienced question there. So let's use strategy and market growth and financial health, right? If one leader sees these as so strong as part of, let's say it's a senior leadership team here, and the rest of the team sees it as, you know, these middling numbers.
Right.
What happens now, Mel, is this opportunity for them to say, so how do we all come to see things exactly the same way, right? So now it's less about the strategy per se, and how do we get to the same sheet of music so we can understand what our starting point is and build a baseline so we can start to execute against that strategy, right? So the strategy influences where we start to understand our baseline so we have that launching pad. So Mel, I think this actually builds it starts to build the baby steps that start to make the strategy incredibly relevant. Does that answer the question?
That's what I observe, and that's what I deal with my clients. Yes, absolutely. You walk out of the room or after a series of strategy meetings, and everybody says, "Great, we got it taken care of," but I don't know how you address those gaps if you don't address them in the strategy. And they obviously aren't, because this was the results of the survey. Then everybody's working hard on a plan that's flawed, a strategy that's flawed. You're not working in some areas that you should be, and you're working in others that some people think we're great. Why do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this relates directly back to what you were saying, Karen, about walking into an organization that has no strategy, no plans, nothing documented. How do you find the baseline of where is everybody? Where are they scattered in how they see the organization? This is just showing team versus an individual. When we do this actually for a team, we'll actually show each color representing a different member of the team, right? You can start to see how you can start to show the gaps up between each one intra-team, but also collectively as a team. So they can all agree to, hey, here's the destination. We're going to Disney World together, right? That is what the strategy says. Going to Disney World, but where are each of them starting from? One is starting from Houston, Texas. One is in Palm Springs enjoying French food. The other one is in Houston, Texas. They all are going to execute slightly differently in service of that strategy. But we all agree on what the endpoint is and how we're going to execute differently to reach that, right? Marketing, sales, operations, so forth, right? That way, the work keeps moving and the team keeps executing, but they all know that they're getting to Disney World, right? Because the problem here isn't that isn't visible because execution is strong. And that's really kind of the entire point of today, right? Because how long does that problem that everybody's interpreting it, and every single day that it exists, they get further and further apart in terms of how they're executing against that plan, right? That bridge continues to crumble every day, right? So how long does that problem usually go unspoken in an organization before someone finally says it out loud, if at all they ever even say it, right? I think this has kind of been underlined in many ways already, right? Here's why that happens, because we confuse agreement with alignment. Hey, we've got alignment. I hear people talk about alignment all the time. It's like, you get alignment for the car, the front tires in your car, but as soon as you drive off the alignment machine, you're out of alignment again. And the longer you wait, the further out of alignment. You come back to the mechanic and say, hey, why the hell are my tires all worn out? It's because your tires have been out of alignment for the last 2.5 years that you haven't gotten it aligned. Alignment is a one-time thing, not an ongoing process, and that's part of it, right? Everyone leaves that meeting nodding. Everyone says yes. The plan is set. Verbal agreement is the start and the beginning of the drift, not the end of it. This is not a trust problem. It's not a culture problem. It's the fact that there's a systemic gap that keeps showing up, and it slowly lurks under the surface. So I think the question, and I'd love to hear from you all, sort of just like an experience share, maybe a situation that you went through. When's the last time you went through your team all left a meeting, everyone was aligned, but they did something different anyway? But everyone was happy walking out of that meeting. Did that ever happen before? And what did it look like? Mel, you got a story to share there?
Well, I think I've commented on this, but what I've seen and with my clients that have this issue is that they really haven't had a thorough discussion about the strategy as it relates to the conditions in the company, whether they're financial or commercial or technology. So not having that really penetrating discussion, the strategy comes out. It sounds good. It's on a fancy presentation, but it really doesn't address the fundamental issues that the top team needs to address. And when that exists, what I found is that the employees don't know, so they're confused. So, you're trying to create a culture where people understand the mission, they understand the philosophy, and they can execute their jobs, without being told. They know what to do. And if you don't get the strategy right and the alignment right, people work very hard, but working very hard and going in the wrong direction is not success. So,
yeah. Point I want to make here is right. There's a hidden systemic gap that always exists, right? And it doesn't close by having yet another meeting about the same topic, right? Because you're just continuing to argue, discuss, share input perspective from the same perspective. Again, nobody's closing how it's being interpreted, right? It only closes when you can see it. And here's what it costs. There's really only two ways that I've ever seen this play out, right? It goes undetected. That's number one. The gap compounds, revenue soften, rework piles up. I know I've been plenty of organizations where we have a meeting about something, and over the course of the next 6 weeks, there are hallway conversations that turn into 45-minute or hour-long conversations about something. Hold on a second. That's not what we said. And there's a lot of finger pointing that starts happening in hallway conversations about, but that's not what we agreed to. I was like, yes, we did agree to that, or vice versa, right? The board asks why you didn't see it sooner. And the honest answer is because everyone was working. We thought everyone was working in the right direction. But if you catch it early enough, you own the story, right? You fix that translation gap before it shows up in the numbers. There's no surprises. There's no rework. There's no overruns of cost. Everybody's just back in sync. And that's the difference between outcomes, is getting to this stuff earlier. It's not a talent upgrade. It's actually less work. People are busy all the time, and all of a sudden they're focused on getting the objective done that is all aligned. Collaboration integrity actually increases. It's all just greater visibility. The hard part is that the execution is what makes you less likely to look. Right? It's why, Cyril, when people bring you in the door, sales organization, they're 20 million in revenue. Hey, they're going concern. We're doing fine, right? But they just keep looking at the numbers. Why the hell can't we hit 25 million? And that conversation has been floating around for quite some time, because they're using the exact same, everyone's operating from different sets of assumptions, right? Leaders who catch it early don't work harder than anybody else. They just look at a different layer when they start trying to solve problems. So the question for everybody here, if you could see exactly where the plan was breaking down, what's the first thing you'd fix? Karen, any thoughts? Clayton, I see that you've jumped in. I'd love to kind of hear from you. If you saw a plan breaking down for a client, for yourself, what would you fix first?
I think it would, for me, I'm here understanding the question right. It's about getting the people aligned, ensuring that we are all understanding something, or the topic or the plan or the objective in the same way, and how we've agreed to go about it. Because you can't, if you fix the details of the plan, but everyone still has different understandings of what is it anticipated or expected, it's not going to really solve the problem. So you got to get to the kind of root cause of what's driving it.
Yeah, fair enough. Clayton, any thoughts from your side? I know you just joined in a couple of moments ago, but any particular perspectives or things to share? And if you do, you're on mute. You're more than welcome to jump in anytime. I will move to my next slide here.
I agree with Karen, to sum it up, the culture. But yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Karen said.
Yeah, it's funny. We've spent a lot of time in the last, I'll say 7, 8, 9 decades as a general population talking about psychology, but psychology is about individuals, and people use the word psychology and culture in the same sentence. But by understanding individual atoms, you don't understand the molecule. The molecule is about how all of those atoms come together, right? It's more about sociology. So, Sunitra, exactly to your point, people talk about culture by understanding psychology. Well, it's a little bit of a leap of faith there, right? It's the connection, it's the connective tissue that actually makes the human body move. It's not just the bones by itself. It's not just the muscle. It's the fact that the bones and the muscles are connected to each other that allows you to run or stand. Culture is about all the connective tissue, and people are not looking at the connective tissue parts. What I've got, I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something? Oh, thought I cut somebody off there. What I'm kind of showing you here is how you can stop that before it starts to compound, right? And it's not a transformation initiative. It's not a new set of programs. It's starting to first with these 4 kind of, I think, steps, right? First is listen for the language inconsistency. If a team has different words to describe the problem in the same priority today, well, they're already starting to drift, right? Measuring certainty, not confidence. I can't tell you how many times I've asked sales teams, how confident are you that we're going to hit that goal at the end of this quarter? Yeah, we're going to hit that, right? Yeah, okay, that's not the question I really need to ask you. How certain are you that we're going to hit that quarter? Well, I don't know. If this doesn't happen, this doesn't happen, this might not happen. Well, you're at 30% certainty, but 90% confidence, right? Those are 2 completely different answers. Decision variance, right? This is where you can start to ask everybody in the team, do they see the exact same, do they see the exact same thing? Do they see the exact same priorities? That's a manual way of doing it. That QR code that I put up in the top right corner and that URL is a way in about 3 minutes, you can do that across a whole team. You can, those maps that you saw, the friction maps, that's what that leads to. So even if you're doing it for yourself, this will kind of show you, like that individual leader, what you look like. And then over time, you can start to see how that compares to a team. That whole process takes about 3 minutes. And the last step in that process is building a continuous signal system, right? If you start to see that there's divergence, whether you do it manually or you do it, use something like our diagnostic that does it in an automated fashion, you got to keep closing that gap. You got to keep closing that gap to find out where that variance is, so that you keep course correcting, so that you actually get to Disney World and don't end up in Houston, Texas on your road trip. So question, kind of frame this all up. Which one of these 4 are you not doing right now and you already know you should be? Any shares from organizations that you might be working with? Where do you think they get stuck? Is it 1, 2, or 3 that you feel like they just don't move forward on? Mel, I saw you shaking your head. I'll call on you. Any thoughts?
When I had my own company and before I was able to scale it up, I had issues with 2, and I'm struggling with that overconfidence of, you can count on it 100% or 80%. Nobody wants to say this is my plan, these are my goals, but I don't feel very confident I can make it. I mean, top teams don't behave that way. You know what I mean? So I always struggled with the trying to judge the input I was getting and how to put a level of confidence on that in my own mind. Is this somebody that has proven they can deliver what they say, or was it questionable? And the dilemma came when you found somebody who constantly overstated their chances of delivering, and that became a whole different issue.
Yeah. Cyril, I'd love to hear from you. I'm working with this $20 million firm. They're well past just doing things, and they're not one-offs. They've got KPIs. They've got metrics that they've been probably and likely been using for quite some time. They probably have some maturity to those metrics. But even then, there's a bunch of those that are probably vanity metrics if they're trying to grow, right? They're metrics that they say, hey, I'm going to make X number of calls in my sales department. I'm going to, reach out to X number of leads, or I'm going to generate X number of leads. But that isn't really talking about certainty. That's actually talking about confidence and hitting metrics. How does that sit with you, Cyril? And how do you reframe that conversation with them?
Sorry. That's the first thing I did when I came to these new clients. I mean, we talk about March. PE firm called me because they were being promised 25 million. And then when March coming and you see the numbers like tiny, they say, ooh, it doesn't work. So the first thing I did, I said, I'm not talking about 2026. Let's talk about 2025. Show me the business coming in. Show me, all the RFP you've been, dealing with and and tell me, give me the top 5 reasons why we didn't sign this one and this one and this one and this one, whatever it is. So the percentage of closing was less than 3%. And I say, guys, we've got a problem there first. And then give me the top 5. Top 5 was inconsistency, complete half RFP, and so far and so on. So you're starting to see, and I said it's not coming from me, it's coming from you guys. So obviously process was not there. There were I like Mel. I will use that in my next sales meeting on Friday with these guys. Working hard is good. Working well is much better, guys. And I really like that, because for me, that's exactly what's going on. And when you've got the sales meeting on the Fridays, it's like they didn't talk to each other for a week. And so you gain the same pattern all the week and a week. Last time I was between San Francisco and Orange County on the flight, and I was listening to these guys, and I was like, oh my God, thanks God I'm in a plane, because I would kill these guys. I mean, in a good way, not in, by the way. But they don't talk. It's like, oh, you remember we've done this and this. And it was like everyone was discovering. And then you've got the VP sales in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what he was doing. So for me, it's like, confidence. I mean, and that's what, when you talk about certainty and confidence, for me, it's like the difference. And I'm trying to explain that because I used that when I was in the corporate world. But what is your pipeline? What is your forecast? Pipeline is your future, 18 months, 20, 24 months. Forecast is, you need to know, we are in Q2, how much will close in, April, May, and June. If you don't know, there is something wrong. So you don't know your clients, you don't know their cycle, you don't know their budget. etc., etc. So it's like you back to square one and trying to teach these guys the way you should do. At least we will, for the leader, they will understand what is the difference between certainty and confidence. I mean, that's a big difference. For me, number two is a big one. Big one. I know languages. I know communication is very important. But for me, communication, because if you notice when you go to these kind of clients, and that's what they call all of us anyway, the PE firm says something to the CEO. The CEO will say something to the PE firms, but nobody from the team is saying anything to the board or to the PE firm. So guess what? Who we need to fix first? Let me guess. Maybe the C-level.
I think that's a really important piece there, right? We're talking about translation right now, just sort of from the top down. There's also translation that does not occur from the bottom up, right? General is not the war fighter out on the field seeing that they actually need to put armor on the Humvees because they're getting blown up by IEDs and roadside bombs or RPGs. That's the stuff that general is not seeing, is not experiencing, and that has to come back to them as well, because that informs, back to kind of earlier conversation, that informs the strategy, right? Meld back to kind of that baseline sort of concept, right? Everything we've talked about has one thing in common, right? What you can't see, you can't fix. That translation gap, top down, bottom up, the shape difference between you and your team has been sitting there dormant under the surface for a long time. Now you can see it in about 3 minutes. And here's what happens. And we're talking in a PE context here because I'm continuing to use that word EBITDA, right? This is kind of the kind of numbers that we start to see in that kind of range inside of quarters because you close the gap, right? Not so. This is a diagnostic. Just when you go to a physician or doctor, they don't, or you go to a mechanic for that matter, they're not running a survey asking how does your car feel. They run a diagnostic that leads to a specific deterministic endpoint, right? Here's exactly what I need to fix. You don't have that little thing that popped up on your dashboard. I need to replace some old sensors. That's what I need to fix. Right? I can put all the band-aids that I want. That's what I need to fix, right? And that's the opportunity that starts to exist here, right? Not surveys, not a personality, not assessments. It's a diagnostic that tells you exactly what specific thing. And it's a map of how that organization interprets the strategy. So you can build that baseline and start to say, all right, here's where we are. We got to orient to where we are so that, because people love maps generally. And the reason why is because you can look at a map and if you know where you are on the map, I know how to get here. And that's the problem I think I find. And I think this is what the prior conversations has touched on is most oftentimes teams don't actually know where they are right now because they're all operating from 7 different places on that 7-person team, right? And all of a sudden by orienting them, they can see that they're in Palm Springs, Houston, and Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're all driving to Disney World. Now we know how to execute, right? So 19 to 23% EBITDA improvement in a couple of quarters is a pretty significant movement forward, right? And the beautiful thing about this is that it can be something that's used in discovery in that first conversation. You walk in, you can show them a visual and say, so is this how you see the world? And the answer is yes, because that's them having answered the question. Now, when you show them and say, so I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but you purposely saw that we did not put any names on that. But as soon as you show it to them and say, but this is how the rest of your team sees it, and you just stay quiet for a couple of moments, they start, I don't know what the phrase is or what the terminology is. They start singing like a canary, I think is the term, right? They say, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong. It's like, yeah, that can happen inside of 4 or 5 minutes of that conversation, right? It's 3 minutes on the diagnostic, 5-10 minutes into that conversation, they're starting to sing like a canary, right? So if you work with other organizations, this is how you walk into a first conversation, show a client something about their business that they've never seen before that actually reflects the reality. And it took them 3 minutes to do that, right? And that's going back to that first question from slide 1. What if your team is doing everything right and that's the reason you can't see what's broken? 3 minutes, you can find out what actually gets you there, right? So this QR code is what leads to that diagnostic. 3 minutes, understands what it is, kind of benchmarks them against industry. We've got about 5,800 leaders who have now done this. So it's not just a, hey, here's how you look at it, but you're in manufacturing, you're in high tech, you're a medical services provider. How significant is what you see compared to the industry, and what does that tell you about sort of that internal narrative? Are you very much a skeptical person, and that we need skeptics, or are you very much an optimist? Right, that's what this starts to benchmark for you. Is this person that you're leading with, talking to as a leader, skeptical about how they see companies? And that's perfectly okay, but that shifts the language, right? And you start to immediately see where the strategy is surviving execution and where it isn't. Not as a theory, as a picture and a shape that you can actually look at and act on. And it naturally leads to this point where they say, well, how does the rest of my team see it? Yeah, that's a great thing.
Hey, Vinay, that code is taking me to Google Meet.
It's taking you to Google Meet.
Yeah.
All right. I will. So if you go to carmo.net/share.
Yeah, that took me to Google Meet too. That number, that thing at the bottom, carmo.net.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me check the QR code. You try these things 1,000 times and you always miss something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's taking me to Google Meet. I will send that to you here in a couple of moments. Just after this, I'll give you the link to that, and I'll send it out to you all so that you have it. But before we go, I'd love to hear from you all. Kind of walking away from this conversation, what's the one thing that you're thinking about? What did this spur as a thought in your mind about what might change as a result of the conversation?
Well, what I've been intending to work on, I haven't done it yet, is how can I, given what I do, which is, helping to build repeatable way that organizations can work, kind of based on everything you described here, right? How can I show what I do in a more metric oriented way, right? So it's not directly this, but it's where I need to kind of build that out. I have qualitative ways to describe what I do, but I haven't cracked the nut, and I also haven't spent enough time kind of coming up with the metrics to show that.
Yeah. I know we're set to have a conversation, but
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you what that looks like, because that's the translation in the back end that happens with this, right? Is that it turns it into an ROI for those services, right?
Yeah.
Mel, how about yourself? What sort of light bulb got a little bit brighter, or maybe turned on for the first time?
Well, I'm familiar with the core diagnostic, and it's something that I've leveraged off in my own approach. And as I said earlier, I look at a process that worked for me finally after about 2 decades to scale my business up, which really starts with culture, both at the employee level and at the top level. Then I got to get the culture right, or else nothing else matters. Once I feel that we've got a high performing culture, I take a look at the strategies and make sure that the strategies do give the organization a value proposition that is going to enable the salespeople to sell. And then I look at execution across the organization. Can operations support the sales organization and what their KPIs? And then I look at cash flow to see if the cash flow is good enough to fund everything that the company wants to do. And so I do this diagnostic up front, and that I won't deal. It's like you said earlier, I don't go to the doctor and he starts treating me without doing the blood sampling. And my blood sampling is a survey with the top team to make sure there's alignment, and then a survey with the employees to make sure that their conditions are right for execution at a high level.
Yeah, fair enough. Appreciate you sharing that. Cyril, how about yourself? Any takeaways?
It just confirmed what we've been doing for many years, and and that's what I like. I mean, it looks like we're on the right track. I mean, and it's kind of funny because 20 years later we still have the same issues anyway, which is kind of funny because we're supposed not to. But no, it's like Mel, coming in on board with, it could be a PE firm, it could be a portfolio companies, whatever it is, and then you do the first assessment, whatever it is, from the operation, the financial, the sales process, and obviously the human being of it, because it's the most important one. I mean, coming from the board, and then usually what we do is we do a interview, very quick one. I mean, not like a job interview, but an interview from the when we engage by the P firm or the board, we understand what they have in mind, and then you go down to the list and to see, obviously, if they are aligned, they speak the same language. And as a French living in the US, I can tell you, I can see that very quickly anyway. They speak English, Spanish, and French, and maybe they don't speak the same language. Simple. And do they have the same goal? And coming back to what Karen was saying, you've got so many companies where their goal is not set before June and July, and they expect the people to drive and to execute by December. Yeah, dream on. I mean, I live in La La Land, but still, okay. So it doesn't happen every day. So that's it. Just confirm, the process we've got is the right one. It's even every company is very unique, but the four, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4 you showed up this morning is exactly what you will encounter pretty much on every single example.
Yeah.
So
I want to. Thank you for sharing that, Clayton. Sinitra, I'll call on you in a second here if you've got any thoughts you want to share. I will tell you, there's something we're just now rolling out. We've been testing it for some time. It's called the PE Daily Pulse. It is something that we're putting out every day, which basically goes out to the market, and it is actually scoring. I call it a stock ticker for the private equity industry. We've been publishing it every day. It hasn't turned into full newsletter format. It will actually show day over day, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, trends in the industry, what's happening. And it actually translates what that means for general partners, operating partners, CEOs and CXOs, as well as what I'll call executive guides. If that's any interest, just type Pulse in the thing, and I'll put you on the mailing list. I'll start sending that to you. There's no cost or anything like that. We will charge for it at some point in time in the future, but I'll make you a full-time, you'll be an honorary member for that. And all I ask is just tell me what you think of it so we can tune it. We're scoring the industry so you can start seeing things that when credit markets are tightening, banking regulations are tightening, limited partners are starting to pull their money back out of funds. What does that mean? And how do you use that as an entry point into private equity? It does all of that translation for you. So Karen, I saw that.
Yeah.
Happy to share that. Let's see. Halal has been monitoring in the background. He said that QR code is now working. I tried it out. It should lead you to that core diagnostic form. That'll take you about 3 to 4 minutes to go through it and go through. You'll see what it looks like and what a customer experience would look like if you were doing it with the idea that this could be used. It's built as a loss leader, so there's no cost to it. Clayton, Sinitra, any final thoughts as we close out here? Both you.
This is really good. Yeah, this is really good. I just want to piggyback on what the one guy, the manufacturing guy, said about culture.
Yeah, okay.
You got to get that culture right. If that culture, if the culture is not right, then everything else is going to fail. And so
Yeah,
I agree with him on that. Yes. And that was an aha moment and a enlightening moment as well.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Only thing is I can't, if you can email me that QR code, because I can't do it while I'm driving.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm happy to do that so you stay safe. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We'll do. Clayton, I wanted to give you just a quick moment here. Anything that you wanted to share, you can say if you are interested or not. That's either way is perfectly fine. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down so I know you're on. All right. Okay. Well, Thank you all. I'll reach out to you all afterwards if there's any further follow-up questions for you all. Thanks for the time. Hopefully this was a good use of time and open something up.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.